The city never truly slept. Even at 3 a.m., the neon lights of Shanghai bled through the curtains of Yuna's small apartment, casting strange shadows across the walls. Shadows that sometimes looked like they were breathing. Yuna didn't notice. She was too busy staring at the doll. Yuna had moved to Shanghai 3 years ago, leaving behind the quiet misery of her small village in Hunan province. Her father had died suddenly. A heart attack, the doctor said, though her grandmother had whispered something else entirely. Something about debts. Old debts, the kind that aren't paid with money. But Yuna didn't believe in such things. She was practical, hard-working. She sent money home to her mother and younger sister, Leah, every month without fail. She lived simply. A small apartment, instant noodles most nights, one real luxury, her collection of dolls. And she had her dog, Mochi. Mochi was a scruffy white Shiba Inu with one black ear and eyes that seemed almost too aware, too intelligent. He had followed Yuna home one rainy evening 2 years ago and never left. He slept curled at her feet every single night, warm and steady, like a guardian who had chosen her specifically. Yuna worked at Fantasia Toy Boutique, a high-end shop in the French concession district that catered to collectors and wealthy parents alike. She got a small discount on merchandise, which was the only reason her apartment walls were lined with glass shelves holding dolls from 12 different countries. She loved them all, but she had never loved anything quite the way she would come to love and fear the Labubu. The arrival. It came on a Tuesday. The shipment arrived at the shop just as Yuna was unlocking the front door. A plain brown box, but heavier than it should have been. The shipping label said it originated from a small manufacturer in Yunnan province, a region Yuna vaguely knew was famous for its ancient temples and its stranger superstitions. Inside were 12 Labubu dolls, the limited Phantom series. Yuna had been waiting for this collection for months. She knew the moment the box was opened that they would sell within the hour. Labubu dolls had become almost aggressively popular. Their strange little faces, wide eyes, enormous ears, that unsettling grin full of jagged teeth, appearing on handbags, keychains, and TikTok videos across the world. 11 of the dolls were standard, pastel pinks, soft purples, mint greens. But the 12th, Yuna pulled it from the box and felt something odd pass through her fingers, like a static shock, but warm, uncomfortably warm. The 12th, Labubu, was gold, not the cheap metallic gold of mass production. This was a deep, ancient gold, the color of old coins dug from the earth, of candlelight in a dark room, of something that had been buried for a very long time and was only now seeing the surface again. Its fur was perfect. Its long ears were delicately tipped in darker amber. Its eyes were a shade of blue so pale they were almost white, a color Yuna had never seen in any doll she'd handled before. And its smile. God, that smile. Every Labubu had a grin, wide, toothy, slightly unnerving. That was the whole point. They were designed to be cute in a creepy way, the aesthetic of something that looked friendly, but hid something sharp underneath. But this doll's smile was different. It wasn't printed on. It wasn't manufactured. It looked earned. Yuna immediately tucked the golden Labubu beneath the counter. She told herself it was because she wanted first pick. She told herself a lot of things that day. The other 11 dolls sold in 40 minutes. The first night, Yuna brought the golden Labubu home at 7 p.m., wrapped in tissue paper and cradled against her chest like something precious. She set it on her coffee table and stepped back to look at it. In the warm light of her living room, the doll glowed. It almost seemed to pulse, though Yuna told herself that was the way light played on the unusual texture of its fur. She photographed it from every angle. She texted pictures to Leah, who responded with heart emojis and "so cute." Cute. Yes, that's what it was. Yuna carried it to her display shelf and introduced it to the others. A row of Blythe dolls, a vintage Pierrot, a hand-stitched cloth doll from a market in Prague, a ceramic geisha her father had given her when she was 7. "New family member," she told them cheerfully. That was when Mochi walked in. The little dog trotted into the bedroom the way he always did at this hour, ready to jump up onto the foot of the bed for his evening nap. But the moment his eyes landed on the golden Labubu, he stopped. He didn't growl at first. He just stared. His body went rigid. Every hair along his spine rose slowly, like a wave traveling from his tail to his neck. His ears flattened, his lips pulled back. Yuna had owned Mochi for 2 years. She had never once seen him show aggression. He was the gentlest dog she had. He whimpered at loud thunder, retreated from pigeons, licked the hands of strangers. The sound that came out of him now was not barking. It was a sound from somewhere much older than domestication. A sound that dogs had made before humans ever called them pets. A sound from when they ran in packs through dark forests and knew instinctively which shadows held things that should not be approached. "Mochi!" Yuna started. The dog lunged at the shelf. "Mochi!" She grabbed him, pulling him back. He writhed in her arms, still fixated on the doll, his whole body trembling. "It's just a toy, you crazy animal." She put him outside the bedroom, closed the door, and placed the golden Labubu back on the shelf. As she got into bed, she could hear Mochi outside the door. Not scratching to get in, not whimpering, just standing there. Silent, waiting. She woke up at 2:47 a.m. No sound had woken her, no alarm, just a sudden cold snap of consciousness. The horrible feeling of waking up and knowing immediately, instinctively, that something was wrong. The room was dark. The neon glow from outside was gone. Power cut, maybe. It happened sometimes. Yuna lay perfectly still and looked at the corner of the room. Something was standing there. It was barely visible in the darkness, a shape roughly the height of a child, utterly motionless. She couldn't make out features, just a silhouette and 2 points of light where eyes would be. Pale blue, the color of something that had never needed sunlight. Yuna's throat had closed completely. She told herself it was a coat. She'd hung a coat on the hook behind the door. She told herself that. She repeated it in her head like a prayer. "It's a coat. It's a coat. It's..." The shape tilted its head, slowly, mechanically, like something that had seen humans tilt their heads and was attempting to replicate the gesture without fully understanding why. Yuna screamed. She lunged for the light switch and flooded the room in yellow brightness. The corner was empty. Just the wall, just the shelf. And on the shelf, the golden Labubu sat in its spot, smiling its wide, jagged smile. Yuna stood in the middle of her room for a long time, breathing. Then she noticed that the doll was on the wrong side of the shelf. She had placed it third from the left. She was certain of it. It was now at the far right, closest to her bed. The dream. She didn't sleep again that night. But somewhere around 4 a.m., exhaustion dragged her under despite herself, into something that was less sleep than it was immersion, less dream than transmission. She was in her apartment, but the walls were wrong. They were too close, and they were breathing, expanding and contracting like the walls of a living thing. The lights were red, not the red of neon signs, the red of something organic, something wounded. And in the center of the room stood a creature. It had the rough shape of the Labubu, the long ears, the compact body, the wide mouth. But it was enormous, nearly touching the ceiling, and it was made of something rotting. Its golden fur was matted and black at the edges. Its smile was not carved, but real, splitting its face from ear to ear, showing teeth that curved backward like fishhooks. Its eyes were fixed on Yuna. It moved toward her, and the sound it made was not footsteps, but the sound of something dragging, like dead weight being pulled across stone. And as it moved, Yuna realized it was laughing. A low, rhythmic, patient laughter, like something that had been waiting for a very long time and found the wait entirely worth it. It reached out one hand. The fingers were too long. Each one ended in a curved black nail that had grown past the point of any living thing and into the territory of something that had been growing in the dark for decades. It wrapped those fingers around Yuna's throat. She could feel it. That was the worst part. She could feel the pressure. Cold, terribly cold, like gripping something that had been kept in a freezer. And she could feel each individual nail pressing against the skin of her neck. She screamed herself awake. The golden Labubu was sitting on her chest. Yuna sat up so fast, she knocked the doll off the bed. Her heart was slamming. She was drenched in sweat despite the room being cold. Much colder than it should have been, she realized. She could see her own breath. Mochi burst through the bedroom door. She must not have shut it properly, and ran directly to the doll, which had landed face down on the floor. He stood over it, hackles up, growling continuously. Yuna picked up the Labubu with shaking hands. Its smile had changed. Not dramatically. Not enough that she could point to any specific feature and say, "This is different." But the expression had shifted, the way a face shifts when the mood behind it changes. It had been playful before. Now it was something else. Something that had decided to stop pretending. She threw it in the trash can in the kitchen, covered it with old newspaper and coffee grounds, and spent the rest of the night on the couch with Mochi pressed against her side. The next morning, she was exhausted and headache-ridden, and she found, when she went to the kitchen, that the trash can had been tipped over. The doll was not in it. She found it on the kitchen counter, propped against the backsplash, facing the room. The smile was wider. Yuna went to work anyway because she didn't know what else to do. That day was the worst day of her professional life. She'd been working at the toy boutique for 2 years without a single complaint. She was known for her patience with difficult customers, her cheerful manner, her ability to talk collectors through expensive decisions without ever making them feel pressured. That morning, a customer, a middle-aged woman who couldn't make up her mind between 2 dolls, changed her selection for the 5th time, and something broke loose inside Yuna's chest. She said things she would never say. Her voice came out of her like something foreign, sharp, ugly, cruel. The words weren't even hers, not exactly. They felt like something had borrowed her mouth. Her manager saw. Her manager acted. Yuna was fired on the spot. She walked home through the rain, shaking, genuinely unable to explain what had happened. It was as if she'd been watching herself from outside, watching her own mouth move and produce sounds she hadn't authorized. When she got home, Mochi didn't come to greet her at the door. The silence. She called for him throughout the apartment, a small place with nowhere to really hide. She checked under the bed, the sofa, behind the television cabinet. The bathroom door was closed. She didn't remember closing it. She pushed it open slowly. The bathroom was cold, colder than the rest of the apartment, colder than made any sense for a warm October evening. Her breath fogged in the air. The mirror above the sink was fogged too, but not evenly. The fog had been disturbed, and through the disturbance, something had been traced. It looked like a smile, a wide, jagged, familiar smile. Yuna made herself look at her own reflection, and that was when she saw them. Small red marks covering her neck and collarbone, arranged in a pattern she recognized. The shape of fingers, like something had gripped her throat in the night and left its record on her skin. She hadn't felt it. That terrified her more than anything. In the mirror's reflection, she saw something on the shelf behind her. The golden Labubu. Back again. She couldn't count how many times she'd thrown it away now. The trash, the kitchen, and she'd even dropped it in the recycling bin outside. It kept returning, each time a little closer, each time the smile a little wider. But that wasn't what made the blood drain from her face. It was what was below the shelf. Reflected in the mirror, she could see the space beneath the bathroom cabinet. Mochi was there. He was very still. She turned around and knelt and knew before she touched him. Mochi had been dead for hours. His small body was cold, his white fur matted in places with something dark. The wounds were strange, not like an animal attack, not like anything she could name. Deep punctures, each one precise, each one in a location that suggested something that knew where to press, something that understood anatomy. Yuna sat on the bathroom floor with her dead dog in her arms for a very long time. Then she started searching, burning. She took the golden Labubu to the small balcony of her apartment at midnight. It sat in her palm, smiling up at her. In the darkness, its blue eyes seemed to contain their own light, faint, pulsing, the rhythm of something breathing. "I know what you are," Yuna said. The doll said nothing. Of course it didn't. But the air around it felt different. Heavy, attentive. Yuna poured lighter fluid over it and struck a match. The doll burned. What surprised her was the smell. Not synthetic, the way she expected. Not the acrid chemical smell of burning plastic. It smelled organic. Old. Like something damp that had been sealed underground for a long time and was now releasing everything it had held. The smoke rose in a column that didn't disperse the way smoke should. It hung in the air, coiling, until the wind finally broke it apart. She collected the ash, put it in a glass jar, took a taxi to the Huangpu River, poured it in, stood there, watching the current carry it away. She called her sister on the walk home. "Leah," she said, "I need to tell you something strange." She told her everything. Leah listened quietly and said, very gently, that maybe Yuna needed to see someone, a doctor, a therapist, someone. She'd been under so much stress, losing the job, living alone, missing home. Yuna agreed. Maybe that was all it was. She felt lighter when she hung up, more like herself. She slept without dreaming for the first time in days. She didn't wake up in the morning. Epilogue. It was her colleague from the toy boutique, a woman named Sarah, who found her. Sarah had come to return a sweater Yuna had left at the shop. She knocked 3 times, then tried the handle when there was no answer and found it unlocked. The apartment was cold, much colder than it should have been. Yuna was in her bed. She looked peaceful, which was the strange part. People always said that in horror stories, Sarah thought later. But she truly did look peaceful, like she had simply stopped. The cause of death would be listed, eventually, as cardiac arrest. She was 26 years old. On the nightstand beside her body, propped against the lamp, sat a golden Labubu doll. It was unburned, unharmed. Its fur was pristine, and its smile. Sarah had handled hundreds of Labubu dolls in her time at the boutique. She knew every expression in every series. She'd never seen a Labubu smile quite like that. She picked it up without thinking. The way you pick things up when your hands need something to do while your mind is falling apart. She didn't leave it behind when the police arrived. It was still in her bag when she took the train home that evening. It was still there when she set her bag down on her kitchen counter. She didn't notice the way her cat immediately left the room. She didn't notice the way the temperature dropped slightly wherever she moved. She didn't notice, in the reflection of her dark kitchen window, the way the doll's smile seemed to shift. Just barely, just at the edges, when she turned away. But somewhere, deep in the old circuitry of her nervous system, in the part of the human brain that remembers what its ancestors knew before language and cities and electric light, something sent a signal. Something is watching you. It has been watching you since you picked it up. It was watching you before that. The golden Labubu appeared in 4 other households that winter. Authorities in 3 countries have reported unusual incidents linked to the Phantom series dolls. In a temple in northern Thailand, a monk who was asked to perform a purification ritual on one such doll refused. When pressed for a reason, he said only, "The thing inside is not a demon. Demons can be exorcised. This is something older. Something that learned from demons the way a student learns from a teacher, and it has been studying for a very, very long time." The golden Labubu was never recovered. Do you own a Labubu? Has it moved? Has your pet changed behavior? Have you been dreaming of something golden with very old eyes? Don't look at your shelf right now. You might not like what's looking back.